Listen, as Tom Brady said, time for a little no huddle. I'm going to play quarterback, toss a few NFL topics around. All you have to do is catch everything. First up, here we go. Bad news at a Cowboys camp where their new all-pro defensive tackle, Gerald McCoy, suffered a season-ending torn right quadricep yesterday. All right, Nick, what does this now mean for the Dallas Cowboys?
It is a brutal loss for them, man. I think, Mike, I thought one of the best things about the Cowboys was going to be their revamped defensive line. They get Tyrone Crawford back from injury. They bring in Dontari Poe. They bring in Gerald McCoy. And then last week they had Everson Griffin. I think Gerald McCoy is a guy who might one day find himself in the Hall of Fame. And to lose him in your first full practice is just a killer, Mike.
I thought Gerald McCoy was going to be a great asset to the defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys and a great compliment to DeMarcus Lawrence. And, you know, when I seen that they hired Gerald McCoy, I instantly thought about the secondary becoming better. And then for them to lose Gerald McCoy is such a big blow to this team. I think it hurts them in all phases of the game. Defensively, you know, it's where you win championships. And this guy was going to be a centerpiece for this defense. And, you know, for him to not be there now, it's going to be a big blow for them. They're going to have to find a replacement because I think he's going to help. He would have helped their defense overall as far as their scheme. So, you know, this is not good for the Dallas Cowboys, and I was expecting a lot of great things from them this season.
Hey, Mike, is there an emotional toll when your big offseason acquisition goes down outside of just on-the-field play?
Absolutely. It's a major blow when you lose a guy who you're dependent on, you're going to count on for the entire season. And, you know, you kind of find yourself looking around like, what do we do next? And, you know, I know myself, I used to be looking at the roster like, who's the next guy that can step up, who can fill a void for the guy that we just lost? And it's not that easy. It definitely takes a lot out of your team. It's very deflating.
And not just on defense, but on offense as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. On to Tom Brady now. After 20 seasons playing under the defensive-minded Bill Belichick, Brady knows things may be a little different down in Tampa, playing for the offensive-minded Bruce Arians. Mike, what do you think having an offensive coach will mean for Tom Brady? Is it really going to change a lot? He's been in the league so long. We already know his approach to the game. How much is that going to change for him?
It's going to change a lot in terms of his approach. It's nothing like having an offensive coach, and I've pretty much in my entire career had 3 offensive coaches and 1 defensive coach, and it is a big difference. When I was young, I had Dan Reeves, and, you know, we spent a lot of time together drawing up concepts, trying to figure out what works, and, you know, trying to understand his scheme. And 3 years later, I get Jim Moore, who's a defensive coach, and things were like vastly different. Spending more time with the defensive side of the ball. You know, and, you know, I always look to the head coach, you know, for guidance, and, you know, it just wasn't there. And then, you know, in 2010, I get Andy Reid, and we spent a lot of time together. It reminded me of my time with Dan Reeves, you know, how we picked and pulled from the offense. And it's just exciting, man, because every day you're going to get a text. You know, you're going to get some type of information that's going to help you within the offense as far as learning, which the learning curve Brady will be in. But, you know, it's nothing like having an offensive coach, man. It's just going to help him in so many ways. And I look for him to just do more on the offensive side of the ball, stat-wise.
Wilds, I think one of the most underrated parts of the Bucs this year is the cumulative brain power they have on the sideline. So you have Arians, who's one of the best offensive minds of his era, Byron Leftwich, who's going to be a head coach one day, and Tom Brady, the most accomplished football player of all time and one of the smartest football players of all time. That's just on the offensive side. And then the defensive coordinator is Todd Bowles, a guy who's going to be a head coach again, a guy who knows defensive football as well as anybody in the NFL. So when people are, I'm not as high on the Bucs as a lot of people, but if you are, one of the reasons has to be, to steal a line from Charlie Weiss, a decided schematic advantage each and every week because of what they're going to be able to do in their preparation meetings on both sides of the ball.
Nick, you've said many nice things about Tom Brady. I don't know what happened. I don't know if we were on break and you got some, you had some TB12 supplements, but you seem to be in a very good mood about Tom Brady. I appreciate it, as well as all those Patriots Nation. And you are a Patriots fan, don't forget. Hey, Mike, I had a question for you. I didn't totally understand this, and can you make me smarter about the relationship between the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, and the head coach? Obviously, Belichick and McDaniels work together, and Belichick's the defensive head coach. So what is that relationship like when you have an offensive coach rather than a defensive coach with the coordinators in the mix?
It makes for more offense. And when you have a guy like Bruce Arians and Brian Leftwich, who will be coaching Tom Brady at the same time, you're spending more time with those guys who understand the offense. Tom already has some recollection of what he needs to do, but now you got two guys who you work with every day who's not spending any time with the defense, who's helping you understand, what needs to happen within the framework of one particular play or many plays. So, in terms of what the Bucs have right now, it's a big advantage in the National Football League for what they're going to be able to do. And I think it's going to take them, somewhere deep in the playoffs and possibly to the Super Bowl. I'm thinking next level for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because when you have an offensive guru like Bruce Arians, it's nothing that you can't do. Sky's the limit. And he's going to pull plays from back in the day.
All right, well, speaking of head coaches, Giants rookie head coach Joe Judge is trying to make a name for himself, which apparently consists of taking the names of the players off the backs of their jerseys. As Wilds would say, it's very Belichick-esque. Nick, you like Joe Judge's no-names policy on the jerseys?
Oh, boy.
This is one of the most ridiculous, sophomoric, amateurish things you're going to see in the NFL this year. He talks about how, and he alludes to it at the end, he yearns for the era where there were no numbers either. And he even says, I once was at a place where we had no names or numbers, which I looked up his resume. He coached at 3 different colleges. You got to have numbers in college. You got 120 guys on the roster. And then the pros, he's been with the Patriots. And as he said there, it's against the rules to not have numbers on the jerseys. Now, we know the Patriots would never skirt the rules, so I don't know where he's talking about. What? Should we take this to its furthest logical conclusion, Joe Judge? Do you want guys to just be able to know, what, that has the essence of Sterling Shepard. I can see his aura. This is the same thing with the other report out of yesterday is he was making coaches and players run laps. Listen, all these guys think that the key to being Belichick is to act like the 7th grade phys ed teacher that everyone hated, as opposed to being a football genius. So to me, Mike, if I were a pro, and they're like, you got to earn the name on your jersey, you're lucky I gave you the number, I would immediately say, this guy's in over his skis. There's a reason he was a special teams coordinator and nothing higher. I'm not putting that ceiling on him, but if I were a player, that's how I would feel about this carnival type stuff that he's making me do as a New York Giant.
Yeah, it sounds very collegiate to me, and I didn't understand it when I first heard it or first read it. But I understand the player identification part of it in terms of positioning, knowing what, for the offensive side of the ball, who's in front of you, who's moving in the box, who may be doing something to change the dynamic of the defense. So I get that in terms of, knowing your peers and constituents. I kind of understand that too. But at the same time, you got to have the names on the jerseys because obviously, how you going to get to know the guys, man? I think that's a very important part of it. It just reminds me of college.
You know what? This is the Hawaiian pizza of stories. This is like pineapple on pizza. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to like it. And then I listen to him like, I love it. Laps. He's making them run laps, Nick. And also for your take earlier about the Porzingis, 2 laps after the show. 2 laps, maybe 3, and keep
listen,
it up.
You say it's the Hawaiian pizza. Maybe that's because it's not fully cooked yet. I know you once did a very famous podcast called Half-Baked Ideas. This is half-baked coaching. Because let's really diagram what he said. He said, no, you should be able to identify the stand-up linebacker by body type when he's walking towards the line of scrimmage. I don't know how your football jerseys have worked, but the ones I've seen always have names on the backs of the jerseys anyway. So unless guys are backing their way into the line of scrimmage, having your name on your jersey doesn't help or hurt identifying guys as Daniel Jones tries to learn to not fumble.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.